Mangwanani malelepo vukenjani xexas vana ve Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning. This is your portal into Africa's potent stories. Today we begin with a sweeping Interpol and Afripol operation disrupting terror financing across 6 African nations, followed by the arrest of a Tanzanian opposition aide ahead of elections. Simone Gabo launches her presidential bid in Cote d'Ivoire, while Zimbabwe confronts the Church of England over colonial-era abuses. Nubian women in Kenya's Kibera transform urban farming through tradition and sustainability. Economic updates feature 27 African nations ranked high risk by Allianz Trade, South Africa reviving its small nuclear reactor project, and Nigeria opening the continent's first aeronautics and management university. Watch Africa Good Morning on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, 1up2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Life is unpredictable and one needs to be protected against any eventuality. Get Santam legal access from as little as $50 Namibian a month for when you find yourself in need of legal representation due to civil cases, criminal prosecution, and family matters such as divorce, child maintenance, and custody. It also covers labor disputes, disciplinary hearings, and unfair dismissal or retrenchment. With Santam Legal Access, you'll receive free legal advice on almost every legal aspect, whether the specific matter is covered by your policy or not. For true peace of mind and legal protection when you need it most, call us on 061 292 8000. Santam. This is freedom.
Let's get into the top stories on Africa Good Morning. A sweeping Interpol and Afripol operation has resulted in 83 arrests across 6 African nations, uncovering over $260 million in cash and cryptocurrency linked to terrorism. Operation Catalyst, conducted from July to September 2025, involved Angola, Cameroon, Kenya, Namibia, Nigeria, and South Sudan, targeting the financial networks sustaining terrorist groups. Investigators found ties between terrorism financing and cybercrime, including scams and money laundering. Arrests included 21 for terrorism, 28 for fraud, and 16 for cyber-enabled crimes. Angola recorded 25 arrests, seizing $588,000 phones and computers, while Kenya uncovered a $430,000 money laundering ring. Nigeria detained 11 suspected terrorists. Authorities also exposed a massive cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme spanning 17 countries, defrauding over 100,000 victims with losses of $562 million. Interpol issued a red notice for a suspect accused of a $5 million crypto scam. Interpol Secretary General Valdechi Urquiza hailed the operation as a milestone in fighting terrorism financing, while Afripol's Jalel Shelba emphasized the success of African unity. The ISPA program, funded by Germany, supported the operation with partners Binance, Moody's, and Uppsala Security. Tanzanian police have arrested a senior official from the main opposition party Chadema outside a Dar es Salaam court, where party leader Tundu Lissu's treason trial was in session a week before the October 29 presidential election. Deputy Chair John Heche was detained without explanation and later transferred to Tarime in the northwest, party spokesperson said. Authorities have not provided reasons for the arrest, which the party described as politically motivated. The Immigration Department earlier claimed Heche had left the country improperly, an allegation Chadema denied, explaining he was expected at the funeral of Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Opposition parties Chadema and ACT Wazalendo have been barred from contesting the upcoming election, leaving President Samia Suluhu Hassan to face smaller parties. Human rights groups accuse the government of suppressing opposition through arrests and abductions. President Hassan insists her administration upholds human rights and has previously ordered an investigation into alleged abductions, though no findings have been published. Tanzanian authorities have yet to respond to requests for comment on the latest detention. Moving on. Former Ivorian First Lady Simone Gbagbo, once wanted by the International Criminal Court, is running for president in Ivory Coast's October 2025 election. The 76-year-old Iron Lady leads the movement of Skilled Generations, a party she founded in 2022 after her divorce from ex-president Laurent Gbagbo. She is the most prominent challenger to incumbent Alassane Ouattara, who is widely expected to secure a fourth term. Simone Gbagbo rose to prominence through trade union activism in the 1970s and co-founded the Ivorian Popular Front in the 1980s. Her husband's refusal to concede defeat in 2010 triggered conflict that left 3,000 dead before their arrest in 2011. Convicted of state crimes in 2015, she received amnesty in 2018. Her campaign centers on national reconciliation, proposing a general amnesty for political prisoners and exiles, and economic independence through replacing the CFA franc. Analysts believe she may not win, but could consolidate the opposition's leadership. Backed by Charles Goude, she presents herself as a pragmatic and committed politician seeking to shape Ivory Coast's political future. The Church of England faces mounting scrutiny after 7 Zimbabweans sued the institution on October 4, accusing it of enabling decades of abuse by British barrister and evangelical leader John Smith. His victims, including the family of 16-year-old Gade Nyachuru, who died in 92, alleged that church officials concealed Smith's crimes and allowed him to operate in Africa. The 2024 Mekin Review confirmed decades of cover-ups leading to Archbishop Justin Welby's resignation. His successor, Sarah Mulali, inherits an institution haunted by its colonial entanglements. The church's influence in Zimbabwe dates to the 1890s, when Anglican missionaries blessed British military conquests and acquired land from the British South Africa Company. Mission schools and churches became instruments of colonial control, shaping generations of Africans to equate obedience with faith. The church profited materially and morally from conquest, spreading doctrines that suppressed indigenous spirituality. Critics argue its failure to confront this past mirrors its silence over Smith's abuse. For many Zimbabweans, faith now lies beyond the church that once sanctified subjugation and ignored its enduring moral debt. In Nairobi's Kibera settlement, Nubian women are blending tradition with innovation through the Mazingira Women Initiative, founded in 2019 to preserve culture and promote sustainable urban farming. Using hydroponics and circular gardening, the group of 50 members grows indigenous vegetables such as okra, jute malo, and nyagwa, staples of Nubian cuisine like mafruk, muliavana, bamia, stew, and gurusa pancakes. The women also recycle food waste into organic fertilizer and engage in environmental cleanup. Founder Malassed Hamida says urban farming in informal areas faces challenges from land insecurity, as plots can be reclaimed without notice. Member Asia Abdallah, once unfamiliar with traditional foods, now cultivates indigenous crops central to her identity. Urban planner Stephen Otieno notes that climate change demands adaptation and praises such initiatives for promoting resilient indigenous crops. Despite limited resources and unstable land rights, Kibera's Nubian women are reclaiming both their heritage and food sovereignty, turning small spaces into thriving green zones that blend culture, survival, and sustainability in one of Africa's largest informal settlements. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we're going to be talking about the United Nations as they turn 80, and specifically the celebrations which will be in Namibia today. But prior to that, let's have a look at the weather. As the United Nations turns 80 years old, Dr. Felipe Talavera, Oyo director and artistic leader, and Ethan Philander, dancer, highlight UN at 80 through 80 Voices for 80 Years, a performance blending dance, poetry, and storytelling. They talk about how the arts celebrate unity and amplify young voices in marking this milestone in this excerpt from the Evening Review. About 80 Voices for 80 Years. An incredible production from what you gentlemen have told me. I trust you. That is coming up in celebration of the United Nations turning 80. How did this collaboration come about, Felipe?
Well, I think it came a long way. And maybe from an organization point of view as OYO, we use arts to create social awareness. We don't often do celebratory project like the 80 Voices for 80 Years. We work on social issues such as gender-based violence, teenage pregnancy, using art. So along the way, we have collaborated with various projects, with various United Nations agencies.
All right.
Prior to COVID, we used to work a lot with UNICEF and UNAIDS. After COVID, we worked much more with UNFPA, and recently we had projects with UNDP. So we've been privilege, I guess, to work with different agencies on different topics. Sometimes an idea coming from OYO that an agency supported, sometimes to support an agency with some of their targets and some of their work. And we've been privileged to collaborate on various projects. And I guess also get an insight about what the different agencies are doing, how they are doing it, and how we can collaborate and bring something a little bit different, because we have a perspective that is artistic.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit of a different perspective than many other NGOs or many other government institutions.
But would you feel there's a natural alignment?
Yes.
Given your work in the
Exactly, because I think what is interesting with the medium we use is that it appeals to your emotion. The arts really appeals to your heart, not to your mind, not to your intellect. And it's a very different type of medium. If you attend a lecture, if you attend a conference, it's for your intellect. It's your mind working. But if you attend a performance, or if you read a book, or look at a photo exhibition, it appeals to your emotion. You feel something. And I'm a strong believer that if you feel something, then you will react more strongly, you will learn, and you will ultimately be able to change. And I think that's something that is also quite close to the ethos of the United Nations. A lot of the work they do is because they want to create a change, a positive change. And you cannot impose change. You cannot force change. It has to come from within. So the art helps creating this within need to understand that you need to change. And I think this collaboration came very naturally. And when there was this opportunity to celebrate some of the work done, so that's wonderful. Yes, of course, we would love to be involved. We would love to be part of it, because it's nice to, as I said earlier, to just pat yourself a little bit on the shoulder and say, we've been doing a lot. We've come a long way, we've been doing a lot. And as much as there is still a lot to do, let's also take a little time to celebrate and to do something that is positive.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about art and its emotive qualities, I swing back and I'm going to paraphrase Maya Angelou. People may forget what you say to them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I believe that is an important aspect of art, especially when it is coupled with these important events where we do need the facts. We do need to know what's going on in a very practical sense. But the only thing that's going to really stir us to change is to be emotionally involved, and that's where art comes in. So what do you want the audience to take away from this performance, Ethan?
I hope they'll understand the message that is being portrayed, and that they will have a good time. And especially for the non-Namibians, I hope they get a glance of real Namibian art.
Very important, very essential. A lot of people like to consume nations and their cultures through what's easily accessible. Social media, TikToks and vlogs and podcasts. Very rarely do they come in touch with the intentional creative art that reflects not just the issues, the celebration, but the identity of a place. Now, Felipe, I'm afraid you had sort of touched on it already, but let's just dig into it. What role does art play in driving conversations about peace, inclusion, and sustainable development, which, as we know, are part of the cornerstones of the United Nations?
I think it's vital. And when I look at the world today, there are many challenges. There are many conflicts. There's many things that don't work, and there's more and more of a division. Actually, we get more and more worried about the others. We tend to close doors rather than opening them, and I think it's wrong. And I think the art can contribute to break some of those barriers. Again, it had this impact in the past, and I think whenever there's been a crisis, there's always been artists gathering together. I can think about Michael Jackson and We Are the World.
Yes.
This type of example, when there is a crisis, it has often been the artists that have said, let's do something, and let's come together, and let's stop talking about our differences. Let's work together towards making the future a better future. And I do believe it is a case again. I do believe we need artists to be that voice, to be that glue that can bring us together. And I think that's something that the nation is very conscious about as well. That all the voices have to be heard.
Let's get into the economic news on Africa. Good morning. A new Allianz trade report has ranked 27 African countries among the world's highest short-term financing and commercial risk economies as global liquidity pressures intensify. The assessment highlights sub-Saharan Africa as the most vulnerable region, with nations such as Ghana, Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Zimbabwe facing debt distress, volatile currencies, and restricted access to international capital markets. Tightened global conditions since 2022 have weakened investor confidence and exposed fragile fiscal systems. The report identifies 90 low-risk and 57 high-risk countries globally, with nearly half of the latter in Africa. Businesses operating in these economies face growing challenges, including delayed payments, credit constraints, and trade disruptions. Ghana's debt restructuring and Nigeria's currency fluctuations exemplify how financial fragility reverberates across sectors. Allianz Trade warns that fragile liquidity and policy missteps could trigger wider instability, underscoring Africa's heightened exposure to global shocks. The findings reinforce concerns that many African economies remain constrained by external financing pressures, unstable exchange regimes, and limited buffers against international market turbulence. In our next story, South Africa expects to lift the care and maintenance status of the Pebble Bed modular reactor by the first quarter of next year or sooner. Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa announced on Wednesday. Once seen as a global leader in small modular nuclear reactor development, the country halted the PBMR program in 2010 after spending more than 10 billion rand without completing a demonstration model. Ramokgopa said internal processes were far advanced to make the case for resuming the project. Eskom currently operates Africa's only commercial nuclear power station near Cape Town, while Egypt builds its own and Namibia, Niger and Ghana explore nuclear options. The 2025 Integrated Resource Plan, due this week, proposes over 105 gigawatts of new generation capacity by 2039, with renewables forming more than half. It foresees 5.2 gigawatts of nuclear power, 16 gigawatts from gas, 34 gigawatts from wind and 25 gigawatts from solar PV. The plan also assesses 10 gigawatts of new nuclear potential, with China, South Korea and the US and Russia listed as possible partners in small modular reactor development. And Nigeria has launched the Isaac Balami University of Aeronautics and Management, the continent's first specialized aeronautics and management institution aimed at training pilots, engineers and aviation experts locally. The initiative, backed by the Ministry of Women Affairs and the Niger Delta Development Commission, seeks to save Africa millions spent annually on overseas training, where costs can exceed $30,000 per pilot and reach up to $130,000 in the US or 80,000 euro in Europe. Founder Isaac Balami shared his personal story of financial struggle and support, saying the university will create opportunities for others through scholarships for over 1,000 students from 11 Niger Delta states. Aviation Minister Festus Keyamo called the project a turning point for the sector, promising to attract foreign investment and strengthen local aviation capacity through maintenance and research facilities. Nigeria has also concessioned airports, launched an MRO facility in Lagos, and partnered with Brazilian and Chinese manufacturers to enhance skills. The institution is expected to retain expertise and make African aviation self-sufficient. You are still with Africa Good Morning. We're going to take a quick break before we return to say goodbye.
Mornings just got better, Namibia. From the latest headlines to the hottest trends, we're bringing you the conversations that matter.
That's right. Bright minds, bold opinions, and a touch of morning magic. This is your daily dose of energy.
So grab a cup and join in on the conversation every weekday morning at 8 o'clock with Smell the Coffee, hosted by Diana Master and Aina Riza Quayo.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning throughout the broadcast. Let's have a look at some of the highlights that were in the show. And as we said, Interpol and Afripol conducted an investigation disrupting terror financing networks across Africa. Tanzanian opposition leaders' aide arrested ahead of national polls. Former Ivorian First Lady Simone Gbagbo seeks presidency. 27 African nations classified among world's highest financial risk economies. Thank you for joining us on DSTV 285, GoTV25, 102.com, and Network Media Hub on YouTube, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube. Do make sure you go to 1up2.com. You can click channels and you can find NTV Africa there, where Africa Good Morning has a home. And you can also click Echo to have a look at all NTV programs at your time, because on 1up2.com Echo, primetime is truly anytime. This has been Africa Good Morning. We look forward to wrapping up the week tomorrow as the United Nations officially turns 80. We'll be bringing you footage from the celebrations, which will be today, and of course, the top stories from broader Africa. Swera Jakaraka.